Welcome to Film Rush. Welcome back to Film Rush Podcast, everybody, where we talk about movies and TV on streaming services from Netflix to Disney, Amazon to Hulu, and beyond as more get added to the fray. We'll see about those free trials and how much it costs to have all of them at once. But either way, we're going to try and find them and see if we should watch them for you or we should tell you to avoid them. But otherwise, Logan, how are you doing today?
Hey, John, I'm doing good. It's been a good week so far here in Chattanooga. We've had some sunshine and 70-degree days for the last couple of days in a row. So I've actually been in a good mood because it's felt like normal.
Yeah.
It's been so dark and cloudy here and rainy.
We had we got down to -10.
Oh, man.
And then it was like 2 days ago, we were at 60 degrees. We had like a 70-degree leap within like 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
And
that's crazy.
Doesn't seem natural, and chances are very high that it's technically not. But yeah, that was wild. Getting into the negatives here, I'm in southern Missouri, that probably has happened a couple times in my life. Like just barely though, like down to -1, then it jumps back up to 0. We got down to -10 here. Fucking sucked.
Jeez. It's been a while since I felt that kind of cold. I want to say it was January of 2015. That was the last time Nashville, I remember getting that cold back when I used to live in Nashville, and I was a valet at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel, and I had
I remember you doing that.
Yeah, I had to work an 8-hour shift on a day where it was 6 degrees, and then the feels like the wind chill was, I don't remember where it was, but it was somewhere in the negatives, the single digit negatives, and it was just miserable, and it's been a long time since I felt that cold. So I'm perfectly fine that Chattanooga only got down to the 20s, because -10 sucks.
No, negative is so odd, people. I'm letting you know right now. Like, it kind of is true that once it gets to a certain cold, your body's like, you know what, it's just cold from now on. I'm not going to feel any colder. But the wind and how bone-chillingly cold it is remains. We had to do my job. We have to go outside and swap out trash in the area, and we took turns going outside and swapping out like trash bags because it got terrifyingly cold while you're out there doing that. Sometimes people spill shit, and so you get wet. So that's even more fun.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not really complaining. It was just a weird experience. But yeah, I'm glad weather is bouncing back. Everyone who's still experiencing cold, hopefully, since you're listening to this, your power is back on, so you're getting warm. If anyone's power is not on, we hope you get power. But otherwise, we're going to talk about movies and TV to get us through these cold and possibly, I guess now, warm days. Logan, we'll start with you on one of your movies. You saw one. What is it that you want to talk about today?
All right, so I have been wanting to watch some new movies over the past week. So I caught 2 that I'll be talking about today. One is a recommend. One will be mentioned later in the avoids. The first one that I want to talk about is a 2021 movie, Judas and the Black Messiah. This came out on Netflix very, very recently. This is the movie with Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield. It's got a whole bunch of other folks as well. Jesse Plemons plays, I'm pretty sure he's FBI or CIA, one of the government agent kind of guys. I really, really enjoyed this. Judas and the Black Messiah is essentially what you would get if you mixed Black Klansman with The Departed. It's really dark. It's really seedy. It's a movie that focuses on the Black Panther Party, and the FBI gets a rat played by Lakeith Stanfield to infiltrate the Black Panther Party and spy on this 21-year-old leader named Fred Hampton, who's played by Daniel Kaluuya. And the whole movie is just this twisty, turny, tense thriller where all these parties are playing off each other and playing against each other, and you're trying to figure out who knows what, and who's, plotting how many steps ahead against the other party and stuff. I found this to be a really good, enjoyable film. It's super, super new, so I'm not going to go into it really any further than that. But I really dug this. I gave this an 8 out of 10 just off the first viewing. Kaluuya and Stanfield are two of my favorite young actors. Jesse Plemons is an unusual actor. He always plays some weird, kooky roles. This is a perfect role for him. Just it feels almost exactly like his Breaking Bad character plucked out and put into this movie. This was a sad movie as well, but I really recommend Judas and the Black Messiah.
Cool. Yeah, I've seen the previews for this, and I honestly think the previews don't do a good job of selling this movie. A lot of the previews are, strangely enough, they picked like slow, intense scenes to put in as preview on at least YouTube. And while that's fine, nothing wrong with slow scenes, just having that as your trailer is a terrible idea in my opinion. Not to say it needs to look like a Michael Bay movie, but like, I don't know, trailers are about getting in, selling someone on your topic, and then getting out. They're meant to be like a minute and a half to 2.5 minutes, unless you're insane. And that's the whole point. These, I just, I don't like the previews I've been seeing, but I'm glad it's actually a good movie regardless.
Well, I'm actually unable to comment because I didn't watch any of the trailers. I just read about this movie coming out and then saw the banner on Netflix and was like, oh, it's out. Or I'm sorry, it's on HBO Max. I've been saying Netflix. It's on HBO Max. Okay. I've been seeing the headlines on HBO Max that it was out, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna give this a shot. Let's see what this is all about. I love Lakeith Stanfield. He was so good in Sorry to Bother You, and this movie really, really impressed me. I don't know that it blew me out of the water. It was a great movie, but it was probably the best movie, the best new movie that I've seen since the Invisible Man came out this time last year. So for a really weird, long, dry spell, this is one of the best movies I've seen in a while.
That's good. That's cool. I'll have to check it out at some point. It's definitely on the queue.
Nice. So what is over on your side of the fence, sir?
So on my side, I have a movie for Disney Plus, and it is Remember the Titans. I feel like I've definitely mentioned this show on the podcast before, but it wasn't streaming at the time because Disney Plus didn't yet exist. It's still a relatively new streaming service. But Remember the Titans was never really all that easily accessible for streaming, and that was much to my annoyance because for a long time I didn't even have a copy of this movie, but it's one of my all-time favorite sport movies. It's football, but it's much more than just football. It's about segregation and bringing African Americans and white folks together back in the 70s, I believe. Yeah, in 71. It's in Virginia. The idea is that the school becomes, they combine. They don't segregate any further. They remove that, and this school starts having African Americans and white people together. And there's a lot of feelings in the town about that because, racism is a problem. But this football team, the Titans, end up having a chance to literally isolate themselves and go to a football camp, training camp, where they're taught by their coaches and bond in this isolation away from what society demands of them. And they end up bonding and proving that it literally doesn't matter. We're all people. Let's just play a game. And it's a really good movie. Great performances by people like Denzel Washington. Will Patton as Coach Bill Yost is honestly probably his best performance I've seen from him. You got people like Ryan Hurst and Wood Harris, which are not necessarily very famous people, but I've seen them in stuff like Sons of Anarchy, and in Wood Harris's case, he's in the Creed movies as Michael B. Jordan's stepbrother, I believe, is his relation. And it's just an all-around great movie. It's a great feel-good movie, and I think a lot of people could stand to rewatch this movie.
Oh, it's absolutely one of my favorite sports movies of all time. I know we've talked about this on the podcast before. I'm sure I've mentioned when I got my tonsils and adenoids taken out when I was in high school. I think it was in freshman in high school. Apparently I was so doped up on drugs, I watched this movie on repeat from morning until night for 2 weeks straight. I remember watching it about 15 or 20 times. They say I watched it twice as much as that. But the point is,
Wow.
I got to the point where I could quote this movie like from memory. It's one of my favorite movies from my childhood, and it's absolutely worth the watch. I noticed it had just come on Disney Plus, and it's something that I've been wanting to buy on Blu-ray. Now that I know it's on Disney Plus, I'm kind of wondering if it's going to just kind of sit there now, and I just don't have to go spend money on the Blu-ray. I still don't know how to trust Disney Plus yet on that, because
yeah, I don't get it.
like Netflix or Amazon, like I know, like, oh, okay, like HBO, like I know it's going to rotate, so I still want to own it, but I haven't quite figured out Disney Plus taking stuff off yet. But this is a great movie to recommend.
I agree. It's why I'm recommending it. So if you somehow haven't seen this movie, go watch it if you have Disney Plus. So that brings us to our avoid section. So you said you had one that you think people should definitely not watch.
Yeah. So it's okay. I think this is a decent movie. The only reason I'm putting it in the avoid pile is because I can't give it like a full throttle recommend or even a half-hearted recommend. Another movie, a newer movie I checked out. This came out in December of 2020. This is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. This is a movie about, how do I even describe this movie? This is a very theatrical stage-like drama that is set all in one location in a recording studio. And you've got Viola Davis playing Ma Rainey, who is trying to go through this recording session. She needs to record 4 new songs. And there's so much drama with all of these side characters. There's like a dozen like supporting characters, I should call them, in this movie. And they're all great. They're all fully fleshed out. And there's a sense of chaos and anxiety about this movie that in some ways was really, really enjoyable. I wasn't a big fan of the ending. I really didn't care for how this movie ended. I think there are some moments where people turn from lovable, ambitious, kind of self-absorbed assholes into just straight assholes. And I think there are some darker tinges to this movie that it just kind of threw me off a little bit. It wasn't my favorite watching experience because it made me really like tense and uncomfortable the entire time, and then the payoff was sour, so it was strange from that perspective. I want to say this is Chadwick Boseman's last performance.
I believe so. I think that's what a lot of the hype around the movie ended up turning into.
Yeah.
Instead of it being about the movie, a lot of people, honestly, I'm pretty sure I saw on like some promotional material, like media, it said last performance from Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, and oddly enough, the performance that this reminds me the most of is Denzel Washington in Fences. The Levy character is so energetic and so enthusiastic, and he's got such a quick wit and a fast moving tongue, but he's not the brightest guy in the room. But he's got the biggest ego in the room, and he kind of treats a lot of the older musicians with a lot of disdain and disrespect. He's got a lot of arrogance. It's a really interesting performance from him. Just overall, this movie just didn't have the best experience for me. There was a lot to enjoy. It is absolutely a performance vehicle piece. It is one of those theater stage type dramas where you're going to have 20-minute scenes where all the actors are in one room yelling at each other for the entire 20 minutes. Sometimes I guess I'm in the mood for those kinds of movies, but this just wasn't the case for me. So I gave it a 6 out of 10 because I think it's on the better side of the scale. It's certainly well done, and the performances are awesome. There's just something about the story and the ending that just didn't strike with me. It just wasn't my movie. So that is my avoid for the week. That is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom over on Netflix.
It's interesting to me that not making a comparison as to how they passed, but Heath Ledger was in The Dark Knight, very large movie, very popular, kind of shot him to fame, and he was in a lot of other movies as well as a great actor. And then his final performance ended up being that the Dr. Parnassus the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus was technically Heath Ledger's last film.
Right.
And it had to be finished by bringing in other actors to complete the character and such. Now, the reason why I'm bringing attention to that is because it's interesting that this is Boseman's last performance, and it's a great performance. You can say that about Heath Ledger as well, but the vehicle around them isn't necessarily of the strongest build. And
that's a fair statement.
That's weird to me, that these two actors, Chadwick Boseman included, being a very good actor, and like if you've seen any of his work outside of Marvel, you'll know this guy was going to be all time. And then it's just unfortunate. That seems to be how it patterns out when you aren't necessarily around for as long as you definitely should have been.
Yeah, that's a really fair perspective. And I guess let me add one more thing in real quick. I got to. Viola Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Really awesome performance. She reminded me...
Yeah, she's a great actor.
She really is. She reminded me of Cate Blanchett in Blue Jasmine. And I remember watching that movie, having a horrible time because everyone is just so terrible and everything is so stressful and nothing is going right for anyone and I don't know who to root for and it just seems like we're just going further down the drain. And that is exactly how I felt with this movie. Her performance with Ma Rainey, she is just unsufferable. There is not a time in this movie where she doesn't interrupt someone else when they're speaking. Like, literally no one else can get a full sentence out like this entire movie because she interrupts them every time. She is just very, very self-absorbed, in my opinion. She's doing it as like a protective armor thing because she's a strong black woman in that particular time, but she is just rude as fuck to so many people in so many situations where she really doesn't need to be that mean. And so that again, incredible performance where someone is being an asshole. That's kind of a theme that I've been talking about a lot, I guess, over the past couple of months. But this was just a rough one for me. So really good performance. I just don't like the character.
Yeah, I've seen a few performances like that. That's kind of a bummer. But hey, it's not for everyone, I guess.
Yeah. But that's it for me. What you got next, sir?
So my void is something that people had a lot of expectations for because it has a long history in musical theater and ended up being kind of a wet fart for a lot of people. So Into the Woods is on Disney Plus. It came out not a super long time ago, 2014, but we're all old here. And this is an adaptation, I guess, of the theater performance, the theater piece of Into the Woods, which my wife had an instructor who was the original Prince Charming when this first played on Broadway.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool connection.
We always had an interest in watching the movie version to see how they adapted that, given that we had the context of that performance and from that instructor. The thing is, though, this isn't a good movie.
I've heard that.
It looks good. It's shot very competently. The music, I guess, is fine. There are some wonky performances. Honestly, I think that Meryl Streep has a odd performance in this. I don't think she's doing anything wrong from what the director wanted from her, but it doesn't work. James Corden and Emily Blunt do fine as the baker and baker's wife, and he's the narrator, so it kind of feels like they're meant to be the main characters, but that's not really how this is structured at all. They're not the main characters, but they are a vehicle that's moving along the tracks while the story's happening on either side of them, but their forward momentum is keeping the story going. And that's about their purpose. There are great casts here. Anna Kendrick as Cinderella is awesome, honestly. In hindsight, I really wish she had been Snow White in Snow White and the Huntsman.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't considered that.
I think she would have been perfect because
she would have been a good Snow White.
It's impossible to cast Snow White because she's supposed to be the most fair of them all. So I'm of the opinion that you should cast someone who has a very specific kind of pretty, which means that no one else quite looks like them, which means you could argue they're the fairest of them all. And I think Anna Kendrick fits that role perfectly. She's a very specific kind of attractive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plus, she's a good actor, so that helps. But no, it's so boring, and it makes weird decisions. One of them being, I hate the sequence with Johnny Depp as the wolf in the Red Riding Hood story. He's creepy. The fact that he's a grown man talking to an actual child and says a lot of things along the lines of insinuating that he wants to eat her, but it's all very creepy. He's a pedophile. It just feels like a metaphor for a pedophile, and I don't think that's necessarily what it was going for, but correct me if I'm wrong, but man, bravo if it wanted to be a metaphor for a pedophile, because it's what it felt like. Overall, I haven't seen the stage play, so I'm not sure if I could say that I just don't like the story, if I don't like the movie, but honestly, I think the movie's bad. Like, it's shot competently, but it's all over the place, and there's a lot of things they could have done to narrow the story down and make it feel better as a film narrative, because shooting it this way, the structure just made it very boring.
Okay, so I haven't seen this movie. Honestly, you've made me morbidly curious to finally check this out, and I have not heard good things about it from anyone. So I believe you. I believe you wholeheartedly. It looks like one of those bad movies that I have to see. So I still think I'm going to check it out from a morbid curiosity standpoint.
That's fine. I mean, honestly, if people want to, that's okay. Just be warned, it's not good. I'm not. This is funny. I not long ago to have said, like, this is coming from someone who doesn't understand musical theater at all. I've not been in musical theater, but since I've been with my wife, who was into theater and thus also musical theater in certain capacities, I've experienced a lot of musicals now. I've watched all the big ones. I still have plans to go onto Broadway HD, which is a streaming service that exists, and you can watch Broadway performances that were filmed, such as I think
that's cool. I did not know that was
yeah,
out there.
you can watch. I think Patrick Stewart as in one of his famous plays where he's a king. I can't remember which king he is.
Can't help you. I'm sorry. I'm not the biggest theater nerd.
I'm sorry. I drew a blank on that right when I was starting to say it. My brain forgot the words. I hate that. But no, it's only like $4 a month. I think it's real cheap. It's like weirdly cheap. Yeah,
it's really cheap.
So I'm excited to get into that. I just think Into the Woods was not a good adaptation, and it could have been. It had the budget, so it's disappointing as well. But that's all I have to say on that. So if you have anything you want to say, we can. But if you want, we can move into the shows.
Let's move on into the TV shows.
All right, cool. So we'll jump over to yours. What is something you saw that sparked your imagination?
All right. So I have something that's not quite a show, but it is following up a conversation that John and I had a couple of weeks ago about streaming services needing to include the same kind of like extra bonus content you would get in a Blu-ray or DVD pack when you would purchase a movie. And I discovered recently that Disney Plus, of all platforms, actually has this stuff for a lot of their big movies. So for example, Avengers Endgame. If you go to the movie in Disney Plus, you'll see there's like a bottom panel. It'll say suggested extras and details. If you click on extras, you'll see that there's something like 30 extras in here, like 20 deleted scenes and then 10 micro documentaries and or like BTS kind of stuff. Most of it is fluff. At some point, I would like to watch the 3-hour audio commentary. That would be fun to watch the Russo brothers watch the movie and talk about it with the writers. I have not done that yet. But I watched several. I thought a lot of them were fine. They seemed really, really fluffy. The only one that really stood out to me was a 20-minute video about the casting. And it was how they casted most of the Avengers. Like most of the 35 or whatever big stars get mentioned in this 20-minute documentary. But they focus on casting director Sarah Finn, who I guess has been responsible for casting the bulk of these Marvel movies. She was there casting Iron Man, so you get to see really cool like screening footage with Robert Downey Jr. like reading off the lines in his audition.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of stuff like that too, like actors who auditioned for roles that I didn't know that they came in and auditioned for. Like I didn't know the first time Chadwick Boseman was brought in, he came in and he read for Drax. And so they've got footage of Bozeman reading like Drax lines.
I didn't know that either, weirdly.
Yeah, and so there's little nuggets like that for Marvel nerds like us, it's absolutely worth 20 minutes of your time. I haven't found any other extra in here that's fully worth a recommend. I want to get through all the deleted scenes. That seems like a really, really fun thing, because those can kind of become headcanon for me. There was a 4-minute one on Bro Thor. Apparently the official title for him is not Fat Thor, but Bro Thor.
I mean, but to all of us, it's Fat Thor.
And if you want to see Chris Hemsworth laughing while they fit him up with the fat suit and everyone laughing while he's showing it off around set.
He had fun with it.
Yeah, it's 4 minutes of everyone laughing and smiling, and then Kevin Feige talking about, it's for laughs, but he put a lot of heart into that character. And I'm like, yes, and it's for laughs. But yeah, really just wanted to highlight that those are available. Those are out there. I didn't know that they were, and wanted to spotlight that is something that is over on Disney+.
Nice.
I checked Netflix and HBO since then. I could not find any behind the scenes, extra bonus content stuff on those platforms. Maybe it's there. If it is and you know it, let us know, write to us and let us know that it's out there. Tell us what the best ones are to find. But for the moment, Disney Plus is doing pretty good over here with the extras.
Yeah, it seems so. I think it's because they're getting feedback from stuff like the Mandalorian behind the scenes stuff.
Possibly.
And I'm hoping that feedback is positive because HBO Max recently got Lord of the Rings. I'm pretty sure it's just the theatrical versions.
It is just the theatrical, yeah.
So that's disappointing. I have no idea why the extendeds have never been offered on streaming. Hopefully someday. What I really would love offered on streaming services is the appendices of Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Make that... It's already split up into episodes. And those episodes already have chapters. All the hard work is done. Just port them, turn them digital, and port them into a streaming service. They do that shit all the time. I don't know why they're not on there. And honestly, it would make a dream project of mine a lot easier. There's something that I've been wanting to do for a while with this podcast that involves the appendices. But since they only exist really on disc, there's no real digital form of them anywhere.
Yeah, it would almost have to be like a video essay kind of thing that we would do as a side project, because that I have not watched them before. I would like to at some point in my life. I feel like that's when I go back to get my master's. I'll do it one of these days. That's kind of one of those things.
It's kind of like get your master's in Lord of the Rings. It almost feels like
exactly.
That. Yeah. So yeah, no, I've always wanted to do something with those, and I have an idea, at least one outside of others that we could use of them for. But hey, if anyone's listening on HBO Max, get the appendices. You already have Lord of the Rings. Just get the extras as well. But cool, thanks. I definitely will watch that 20-minute behind-the-scenes thing for Endgame, for the casting stuff, because I did not know Chadwick did Drax stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. This woman is a casting director, and I know, John, you really, really like that, behind the scenes, how movies get made.
Yes.
She seems like one of those people that, folks like us would want to.
Oh, for sure.
About. So she gets spotlighted a lot, and I think that's a really cool thing.
I mean, Andrea Romano, she's the casting director that basically invented the DC voices we know. She found Mark Hamill, she found Kevin Conroy.
Nice.
All those classic DC voices, amongst many others in the animateds that we've come to know as the voice of that hero. Superman as well. And villains. That's Andrea Romano's. She's had her hand in all of that. And I feel like...
I didn't know that. That's cool.
This lady is that for live-action Marvel, probably. So I'm glad she's getting her moment to shine. Casting director is a very underappreciated role. It's a dream job for me, honestly. I would love to be a casting director.
It definitely seems like it would be a really, really fun job. I feel like if I were to ever, all right, I'm going to go to Hollywood and try to cash in on this whole thing, casting could be something that I would be interested in. But that's enough about the Endgame bonus features. So tell me, John, about what you've got coming up next.
So my recommend this week is one I never expected to recommend, but it does come with some caveats, and I think that those remain important to know. So my recommend this week is on Netflix, and it is The Legend of Korra. This is the sequel continuation of the Avatar universe from Avatar Last Airbender. It is a sequel, but it honestly really helps to not put it with Avatar Last Airbender. If you're going into it and you're expecting just to get exactly the same, you'll get a lot of similar stuff. The animation style is still the same. There's a lot of similar writing, but it does feel like they're kind of trying to recapture Avatar while leaning a little too hard on the legacy and not allowing the new story to be that interesting. But it does get interesting. A lot of the characters do eventually shine, but the word that's the problem there is eventually. Season 1 is okay. My wife and I started this a while ago. I'd seen Korra before when it was coming out, but I didn't catch literally all of it, and I didn't enjoy it. So I was curious to see how I'd feel this time around. And this is coming from someone who's watched Atla thousands of hours of Atla content. And so I was really trying hard not to apply my expectations from the original to this time around, giving it its shot. First season's okay. Second season is dog shit. The second season is so painfully terrible dog shit. I'm sorry, I don't want to insult anyone who wrote the second season. If you wrote any of the other parts of the season, I assume you're not a bad writer. It's just the season was not well made.
That's the one where she spends like half the season in the spiritual world, right? Or is it the first season?
Yes, but that's not even really the problem. The second season has a lot of interesting stuff when it comes to like exploring the first Avatar. You meet the first person who ever became an Avatar. I have mixed feelings about the backstory of how the Avatar came to be, because a lot of it feels a little weak and contrived, but that stuff is interesting. The problem is Korra turns into an asshole for the entire second season. She's a dick to everyone. And everyone else is kind of also an asshole. The villain has the dumbest plan ever. The villain's plan is basically just to become evil Avatar. That's it. I just want to be you, but negative. I want to be the negative Avatar.
Oh yeah, I remember that now. Yup.
And like, sorry for, I guess, spoilers, but like, the evil guy's plan is evil. That's all I said, really. So you still don't know what the heck is the heart of the content of this. Season 2 is definitely rough. But I remembered people telling me, including some people online, Season 3 is the best. Get to Season 3. And being someone who's used to anime, getting to Season 3 is something I'm used to doing in some shows.
Sometimes you gotta do that. That's kind of how I feel about Parks and Rec and The Office in some ways.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah, those are similar in that way.
Even shows that good.
Yeah. So I got to Season 3, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was like mind-blowing or anything like that. I still don't think it's as hard, it's not as solid as Atla, but Season 3 was better. It had a more convincing villain, a villain that actually felt like they existed outside of just, I need to be a bad guy for this show. Didn't feel as ham-fisted. There was actual personality among the villains, and it felt like her crew also had rivals, as opposed to the other seasons where her crew was just, you gotta have Team Avatar, but other than that, there wasn't a rivalry for anyone. Like in Atla, Zuko has a rivalry with his sister. Mm-hmm. Aang has no direct interest in Azula other than the fact that she's Fire Nation and wants to kill him. Zuko is the one who is versus Azula.
Well, when those two gangs meet up, each one has a counterpart they always face off against, and they've got like their gang rivalry kind of thing.
There's that, yeah, back and forth. In a lot of the other seasons of Korra, it's really all about her, and her gang is just there to help her, and no one has any interest in her gang other than just to get to her. So it all feels very contrived. Season 3 changes that, and there's actual rivalries. There's actual interaction among wider villains rather than just the one bad guy. And so that was good. Season 4 is dealing with a concept that is also interesting. It's dealing with basically a broken person with PTSD. And that's pretty deep for this show, considering it's meant for children. Season 4 did not air on Nickelodeon. This show was really boned over by Nickelodeon in reality. Like, it, regardless of the quality and how people feel about it, Nickelodeon just completely screwed this show. It aired episodes out of order. It didn't even air the 4th season. It wasn't going to air the entirety of Season 3 or something like that. and it was pushed into like a time slot that no child would watch. So it really got a bad rap in that case. But otherwise, outside of my entirely long rant about Legend of Korra, I think that the characters have good redemption in season 3. So honestly, you could watch season 1 to get familiar with the world, get familiar with the characters, watch a video that like gives you the cliff notes of season 2, and jump to 3, and I think you'll have a much better time.
So is season 3 the one that's heavily steeped in the Earth Kingdom?
No, well, kind of.
Or is that season 4? Because I remember
season 3 is kind of season 4 is more so. It's season 4 is when the Earth Kingdom is the problem.
Okay.
But season 3 does have a lot of Earth Kingdom stuff in it. That's why I got confused. Season 3 is Airbender. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
people say he's the best villain of the show.
Okay, I need to rewatch,
and I'm not sure I agree, but he's good.
I need to rewatch Korra. I watched this when it came out, or maybe not when it came out. I got this on DVD like 7 years ago, like 2014, 2015, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it once all the way through and thought it was fine. Love it? No, but it was fine. Like, it wasn't bad. It was okay. And I just have never gone back to it. But it's something I should probably rewatch soon.
Yeah, I think it's worth a gander. As I said, the way I said to probably watch it, season 1, then cliff notes of 2. And you may not even need to do that much because you've already seen it before, so you might just need to watch some of season 1 or all to like get back into the zone of who is who and what is what. And honestly, you can skip season 2. Not a whole ton changes from season 2.
Okay.
You remember what happens in season 2 involving the two worlds colliding, and that's it. That's all you need to know. That's not really a spoiler because you don't know what I mean, audience. But anyway, that's Legend of Korra. Watch it, as I said. And otherwise, we don't have any avoids in our television shows.
Nope. That's it for movies and TV shows this week.
Cool. So that brings us to our individual reports. I think Logan and I both have very interesting things to say, but for different reasons. But we're going to start on yours. Yours was Eddie the Eagle over on Disney Plus. What was your experience flying with this movie?
All right, so Eddie the Eagle, I thought this movie rocked. This was a really damn good movie. So this stars Taron Egerton, who most of us know from Kingsman fame. He is playing Eddie the Eagle, who is an aspiring Olympist. He wants to become an Olympian, doesn't really care how, like what sport it is. Like ever since Eddie was a little kid, he has wanted to become an Olympian. Throughout, like, the opening credits montage, you see him growing up, and, like, throughout the years, like, all the different types of Olympic sports he's, like, training for as a kid, and he fails at all of them miserably, so consistently. But he is a guy who is going to prove everyone wrong. It is very much a Rudy kind of story. And he finally decides that he is going to become a high jumper, a ski jumper, I should say. Ski jumping is where you've got those really, really tall towers, and they go flying down it, and then they like shoot off into the air, and it kind of looks like they're like leaning really, really far forward, like a rigid board. That's what ski jumping is, and it is extremely, extremely dangerous. And he decides that is the method that he is going to go, because it has been like over 50 years since a British person competed in that particular sport in the Olympics. So there's no one to tell him no. There's no one to cut him from the team. And along the way picks up Hugh Jackman as kind of a pseudo coach, because it just so happens that Hugh Jackman is this amazing washed up ski jumper himself, even though he's now an alcoholic. So you get to see a really grumpy, constantly drunk Hugh Jackman coaching a very weird and awkward Taron Egerton character throughout this movie. This is one of those feel-good underdog stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. It's really gripping. It's really exciting. There are some really scary, like, intense moments in this movie with some of the jumps that he does. He puts himself into some pretty risky situations with some of these jumps. He's got a lot of courage, maybe not the most sense. But he's a fun character. He's an interesting guy. He's not the most normal or average individual. He very much stands out from everyone that he's around. But this is a really good, feel-good movie. Kind of reminded me of Chef in that way, where it was just a pure delight. And the moment it ended, I had this like rush of, oh my gosh, that was great. I want to watch this movie again right now. This is going to get like a full recommend from me. I gave this a 9 out of 10. I think Eddie the Eagle is really, really, really well done.
Nice. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, whenever this movie was coming out, I saw the trailers for it. Again, I think the trailers for this film as well sold it short because I think they're just edited so generically that I was like, this is either just going to be an Oscar grab for both of these actors and it's going to be kind of a mediocre film, or it'll be great. Like, that's really kind of the feeling the trailers gave. So that's why I was curious to give this to, because Taron Egerton and Hugh Jackman are great actors. Although I'd like to see a wider range from Taron just because I haven't had the opportunity yet. But I'm glad you like this because now this is going to be one of the ones I get to see from him.
Yeah, and this will definitely give you a wider sense of his acting range. This to me is super similar to Real Steel because it's a Hugh Jackman inspiring, feel-good underdog story in a sports competition where Hugh Jackman is kind of playing the coach to the athlete. So it's like that, but I think it's like 2 quality levels above Real Steel. I just thought this movie was super well done. It's and this is all based on a true story. So this is a real guy. I'm trying to remember when this 1988. This movie's got this really soft but sweet like synth score that plays throughout the whole movie. And it's a mood like all in and of itself. And it's really unique. It's really interesting to be watching a sports drama comedy, but to have this like really dope like synth pop kind of soundscape playing in the background the whole time. Mm-hmm. I really dug it. I was surprised too because the director is Dexter Fletcher, who did the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, which I was not the biggest fan of. I gave that like
that was a mixed response.
Yeah, it was like a 4 or a 5 out of 10 for me. But Eddie the Eagle, I gave that a very easy 9 out of 10. I might be on the more enthusiastic side. You could probably, with logic, reason that this is more like an 8 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10, but my heart is in it. 9 out of 10. Eddie the Eagle. Loved it to pieces.
Nice. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Definitely going to put this on the list of things to watch. Among Bombshell and Chef, I now have Eddie the Eagle. Of all these films that are either awkward but definitely intriguing, feel good and will make you hungry, feel good and will make you feel inspired.
I think you will enjoy watching them. Okay, so we were texting about the watch order earlier, and I said end with Bombshell because it was my least favorite of the 3, but now I'm thinking you don't want to end a movie binge on a really cringeworthy, uncomfortable sexual assault movie.
Yeah.
So maybe start with Bombshell, and then go to Eddie the Eagle, and then go to Chef.
Cool. That'll probably end up be what I do. So I'm excited to watch some feel-good movies. I need more of those in my life. But other than that, if there's anything else you want to say about Eddie the Eagle, do you want to get to Birds of Prey?
Yeah, what do you think about Birds of Prey, the emancipation of one Harley Quinn?
It's extremely mixed. Like, I'm talking Chex Mix. I'm nuts, peanuts, the bread things everyone love, along with all the Chex cereal, and then for some reason someone threw macadamias in there. This was a very strange movie because it started horribly. It didn't get a ton better, but it did get better in parts. So the same problem out the gate is Margot Robbie's Harley for me is such a mixed bag. She is such the perfect casting for Harley. For both Harleen Quinzel and for Harley, she's great, but the writing, and I guess maybe because she has a big hand in Harley Quinn now, this character specifically, she's a big-time producer for it, she's a big supporter for it, so I feel like she'd be able to control some of the writing for it, so I think she has a bit of a hand in this, that when sometimes Harley gets really bombastic and real dumb, like I'm talking super dumb, and it feels very strange for her character, but then there's other moments Like at some points in this movie, when the movie decides it's done snuffing the nitrous from Fast and the Furious into its nose, it settles down for a second and has Harley just talking like a normal person, and but with those like weird Harley oddities in the middle of the sentences, or just it's a look from her that makes something weird. Those scenes are great. Like this movie has a couple of them that I can even think about right now, and I'm just like, yeah, that scene was really good for Harley because I felt like she was a real person, but also very extreme, and that's just what you want from your Harley Quinn. But then the movie would get loud and explosive again, and she got really over the top, like trying to be Deadpool kind of over the top. Plus, the film had this obsession with showing you information that you didn't have any context for, then having it pause. Harley goes, "Oh wait, you don't know nothing about this yet. Well, let me tell you the context for this." And then it cuts back, way back to give you 15 minutes of context on why this moment is important. It does this like 3 times out the gate in the first act, and then it continues for a while into the second act. The performances were fine. I think Huntress was a real mixed bag. Good old Ramona Flower here. I can't quite remember her name out the gate.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
She's a great cast for Huntress. I agree with that, honestly.
The character is so fucking flat.
She's very flat, and it's played for laughs.
There's nothing to do.
Yeah, they play her for laughs, and there's some parts where it kind of comes through that she's a real person, but other times it just feels like she's a joke on the generic revenge story for some reason.
Yeah.
People trivialize the fact that her parents were murdered. They're like, yeah, revenge doesn't really solve your problems, get over it. And then like that's the joke. So I don't get that. Journey Smollett as Black Canary. They call her the second Black Canary. I don't know why DC has this obsession with every time there's a video version of Black Canary. This happened in Arrow, if I remember correctly. It's always the second generation of Black Canary. It's never the first. I don't get why. And it's never what's in the comics. Now, I don't care about the race casting. Black Canary is traditionally white in the comics. I don't give a fuck. Honestly, like, you cast whatever race you want to cast is fine. But the aesthetic of Black Canary, she wears black leather, she's got fishnets, big boots. And some people be like, well, you just sound like you described a rather racy individual. Depends on how you style it, but I always got the idea that Black Canary was kind of punk rock. That's what I got. So, style Black Canary punk rock. And this, she's kind of like pop fashion. Really weird thing to critique, but it goes into her personality as well. She only uses her power once, by the way, which is super dumb.
And an incredibly, not random moment, but like, what the fuck?
You had no choice but to use your power, and that's what made you use it. Cool. I guess this isn't a superhero movie.
Yeah. It feels so random, it's not cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit with the rest of the movie.
Rosie Perez plays Renee Montoya, who is, I told my wife, this is a new stereotype that's popping up. Relatively new. Where, like, there's all kinds of stereotypes that happens in movies, like the tough guy cop kind of stereotype. Now it's the tough guy Latino woman cop. And that's such a weird stereotype because it really boils them down to the simplest things. And that's what happens here with Renee Montoya. She's just a washed up, tough girl, Latino cop who just plays it the same as any other movie that doesn't understand how to actually write that character. She's just punches. She's really smart, but put upon, and, you know, people overlook her because she's both a woman and a minority. But she's the best cop in the unit regardless. Like, she knows her stuff and everyone just doesn't appreciate her or actively tries to stop her. This is a trope that happened in even one of my favorite shows. Altered Carbon has this exact same problem. A Latino female cop who's very good at her job, but no one understands her and thinks she's a loose cannon, so she gets the best work done when she's disobeying her superiors. That's the new thing. And I don't think it reads well here. And I just didn't like that. Ewan McGregor's Black Mask was interesting. I liked him.
Yeah, what did you think about him?
I liked the character. It took some liberties with the character from the comics, but not so much that I couldn't recognize them in this. I like that they just went full ham and gave him the mask instead of like doing some trying to dance around it, and he's got like a mask pin on his lapel thing. They gave him the mask. He doesn't wear it for majority of the film, but that's okay because in the comic books, the mask is a thing he can take off, and he does, but at one point it gets like sealed onto his face, like burned onto his face, and he can't take it off from then on, and that's how he becomes called Black Mask. In this, they never really call him Black Mask, they just call him by his actual name. But when he just dons that mask and goes for it, and honestly, his performance, you could tell Ian McGregor was having fun just doing a villain, and I enjoyed that. I liked Zaz, too. This was a good representation of Zaz. But, you know, I guess try not to spoil things, but don't expect any more of these characters.
Yeah, I'm itching to jump in. What were your, I guess, final thoughts on just Birds of Prey overall?
Overall, I could see where it was. I could see what it was trying to do, and in some parts, Harley Quinn, when she's allowed to sit down and just be a person, is interesting and fun to see. But other times, the movie gets jet fuel syndrome and just decides to go full ham, and I don't think it works. 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10, pretty generic. I'm not going to watch it again.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's fair. I feel very, very similarly to you. I feel like on a good day, I could give this a 7 out of 10, and on a bad day, I could give this a 3 out of 10. It's very, very weird movie. There's a lot that I really like about it. There's a lot that I don't like. I think the quickest way for me to critique this movie would be to compare it to Deadpool 2, and that it's a team-up movie that just doesn't do a good job of pulling all of these new characters together very well.
Yeah.
And by the time it's done a bad job of pulling all the characters together, most of them die within 15 minutes of that moment. And so it's just not my favorite representation of Harley Quinn. I think Margot Robbie is the perfect dream casting for this character. There's just something about this character that I don't know what it is. I feel like it's almost a little bit too hot topic when I feel like it could be more rated R.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a strange thing to me that they have the hyenas in the movie, but like they only get to do one thing and it's off screen. Like they only get to kill one person and it's off screen. So it to me, it feels like there's a lot of like, oh, there's that one moment where Harley Quinn gets to do that one thing she's famous for in the comics and TV shows. And then like, that's it. It's not like an actual genuine character trait. It's just one 30-second thing that Harley does for fan service.
Yeah.
So something like, there's just something about the writing for this movie that didn't ring very genuine. I think this character has the potential to make a near perfect movie like I think Deadpool is. It didn't happen. And I think they should have focused solely on Harley Quinn. I think all of these other characters are just a distraction from the great Harley Quinn movie that we could have had.
Yeah.
And I think there's strange moments where they pull their punches as a studio, where like you have Harley Quinn breaking into the police station, and I get that in modern eyes it is difficult to have a main character walk into a police station and shoot up a bunch of cops.
Well, the thing is, she does it with such a dumb weapon. Like, she has to reload
So
after every single shot. In real life, the cops would have murdered her between reloads.
It looks cool. It's so much fun. It's all popcorn and icing, but there's no fucking logic behind that police station attack scene.
Yeah, no. And also, people would have totally died. She shoots a man nearly point blank range, right literally between the eyes with a sandbag gun. People who've been hit with those things, if you've been hit in the chest, your entire upper front body is bruised after being hit with one of those things. If you get hit within like a foot range of one in your fucking face, you're either very hurt and concussed, or you're dead. So like stuff like that is so weird to me that like a movie now
That's a fair point.
would choose to have that, and that's like the okay way to take down a cop.
Yeah.
This is Harley Quinn's not killing anybody.
It's
like
still
this
violent.
isn't like her murdering cops. No, that man is dead.
That's interesting. Maybe. It's just, I don't know. I almost would have rather her just like Joker gassed everybody and just walked amongst a bunch of dead bodies or something.
Well, I mean, that would have been a mixed message because she's trying to get away from Joker. So honestly, using gas, I can see why they wouldn't want to use gas.
Maybe.
But here's the thing, though: there's already mercenaries after the kid. If you don't want Harley to kill cops and thus demonize her to the audience, you have all the other mercenaries who we already hate basically do all of that work, and Harley uses her wits to get around them and take the kid out from under them.
Okay, all right, that's interesting.
That's how you do, because she's supposed to be the smarter person here, because yes, she does have a PhD.
Yeah, she's smart.
She's a psychologist, and they play that up for gags in this movie a lot, where she'll say like she deduces someone down to their psychosis, and she's like, "You're not really that interesting. You're really just self-absorbed." Her doctor side breaks out every once in a while, and while that's funny a few times, that's the only time her therapist side is relevant at all. Using her intelligence would be a lot better than just having her come in with a fucking single round beanbag gun and take down 30 police officers.
I think there's better ways to do this version of Harley Quinn. And I think there's a couple of other versions that could have been even better. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
It's better than Suicide Squad, but I will never watch it again.
Yes. I think the narration is awful. I think they should have just leaned into it and just sat Harley Quinn down in a chair and interviewed her like she was in The Office. I think that they should have found a way to just full lean into the humor with that. Because they were so teetering on that line, they were in the shallow end of the Deadpool kind of irreverent humor, and Harley Quinn is kind of one of those characters you can do anything you want with her. So I feel like if you're gonna dip your toes in the shallow end, just dive in or creep back to PG-13 and make that great, because it's so in between. We want to be hard and edgy, but we also still want to be seen by 15-year-olds. I don't know. I felt like this movie couldn't pick a direction it wanted to pull in, and ultimately where it got left was dissatisfying.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to like it. I gave it a fair shot, I think. And there are parts that genuinely got the reaction out of me that I think they wanted me to. Black Mask taking off those people's faces.
Oh, yeah, man. That's a scene.
That is a rough scene. And Ian McGregor and Zaz do a great job in that scene. Mm-hmm. Again, this is a solid representation of Zaz. That's a hard villain to do without it coming across as campy. And he was creepy as fuck. So that was a great job. He was
very creepy.
And so there are...
Is that a snot bubble?
Yeah, I changed my mind. Yeah, a great performance from both of those guys. I enjoyed that part of the movie for sure.
I loved Harley Quinn's business card. That was one of my favorite jokes. She keeps
trying to figure out what the fuck she wants to do.
Yes. One of my favorite jokes in the whole movie.
So yeah, not to say this film has no redeeming qualities. If you want a movie that is about a female group of superheroes coming together and doing, superhero stuff, this is a serviceable film for that. It's just not as good as it could be. It definitely needed... I don't know if I would say this needed longer to bake in the oven, because I'm not even sure if these writers could have gotten it better. But maybe it needed one more perspective of some sort to really tighten up the script, because it's kind of hemorrhaging as it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I personally would rather have seen a Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy movie. And
there are rumors that there's another Harley Quinn movie in the works, and that she's going to be with... the relationship in it is going to be with a woman.
That could be cool.
And the internet is demanding, and I agree, Ivy.
Yeah.
If they do have her if they're going to confirm, and they do actually confirm in Birds of Prey that she's a lesbian, because they do the slot machine montage of all the relationships she's had in her life when they're doing her backstory, a girl pops up on the slot machine. So they're not... I mean, it's really quick, and it's never mentioned again, so it is kind of cowardly.
Right, but it's there.
But it is a canon demonstration that she is interested in women. So it's got to be Ivy. If you put her with some other girl, you're an idiot.
No, I completely agree with you. That's what I wanted to see in this movie. And maybe you could have them be best friends. Maybe you could have them be lovers. You could have them be... enemies, lovers turn enemies kind of thing. But I would love to see that in a movie one day. I think that is one of my favorite relationships from the the Batman universe.
Yeah, and
so
if
I'd
they
really like to see that.
if they ever announce Ivy's happening, I would totally love to like theorize who I'd want as Poison Ivy, because that is a very specific role.
It is.
It depends on what you want from the role. Do you want crazy or do you want seductive? Like, there's different versions of Ivy that have popped up throughout the years. They've tried to like cross crazy with seductive, and it doesn't always really work.
All right. I'll name drop someone I think might be able to meet both of those. My dream casting at this moment would be Emma Stone.
Interesting. Well, we're about to see her in a movie called Cruella, about Cruella de Vil. I know, it's really random.
I forgot about that. That's funny. I haven't seen that trailer yet, but I want to.
The trailer is pretty generic, but I'm still interested to see her in the movie. I'm curious to, regardless of what the movie is like around her, I'm curious to see her play that kind of character.
Couldn't have said it better.
Because I love Emma Stone. I don't know if anyone's... She's top of a list, let's put it that way. That's all I'll say. Yeah. Moving on, I just want to say real quick before we move on from Birds of Prey, I mentioned to Logan before we started recording, this movie really wants you to remember that it's called Birds of Prey. Because, my God, almost every woman in this movie is called a bird at some point. Black Canary is called a bird all the time. I'm pretty sure someone calls Harley a bird a few times.
You are so correct. I had not thought about it, but you're right. That is so common in the movie.
It's so annoying. I'm just like, okay, outside of the fact that it's like weirdly sexist just to constantly call women birds, I get it. The movie's called Birds of Prey. You don't have to name.
I guess it's like in Charlie's Angels kind of thing. Like, I'm an angel. Like, maybe it's...
Oh, look at the little angel. And then they go beat someone up.
That's what they're going for, maybe?
I guess, but yeah.
They're not a real team, though, and Harley doesn't even join him at the end of the movie.
Harley's not even in the team.
So,
yeah.
Like, who cares? Like, I don't care about the Birds of Prey in this universe. I care about this Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to focus on. There's a great 1 hour Harley Quinn movie in here that you have to watch a shitty Birds of Prey movie to get through.
Warner Brothers, call me. I have a script that has Harley Quinn and Joker and Batman all in it.
Shocking that they messed a movie up by trying to throw 5 main characters in it, and they just couldn't do it.
The whole too many characters curse. Who saw it coming?
Hey, I'm glad you watched this. I didn't think you would love it, but I thought that this would be good watching since we are getting close to the 4-hour Snyder cut of Justice.
Woo! Gonna watch that.
I'm actually getting a little bit more excited reading about how he's not taking any money for doing this. He's doing this just to get it done right. Like, there's some...
Did you hear? Warner Brothers wanted to release an unedited version. They wanted to originally... he had an assembly cut when he left originally. Like actually I think it was like 6 hour just assembly line of all the footage he wanted in an aspirational cut to have all in a row. And then from there, as a director, you often cut down and down and down until you get into your runtime. Then you start adding to the effects. The shots that you know you're going to keep start getting the effects put on. So that means that the assembly cut has no effects. It's just green screen. It's just...
Yeah, the assembly is pretty much just like the first
time... There's no fades.
You,
there's no anything.
Like, organize raw stuff.
They wanted to release that. That's what Warner Bros. Wanted to do. They just wanted to drop that on HBO Max and say, look, we did it. We released the Snyder cut.
Why would anyone want to watch that?
And Snyder told them, no. He said, I would rather you just literally never allow me to release it and for it to remain a myth than for you to ever do that to a movie. Because that's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's horrible.
That'd have been the dumbest ass movie. And according to this interview / expose I read, he was pretty straightforward with them. They're like, well, why don't you want us to do this? He was like, 1, you just want to do it so you can tell the internet, look, we released it. 2, you want the internet to stop bothering you about it. And 3, because you know you already released a piece of crap. And you could point to this because it has to literally be a piece of crap when you release it like this. You could say, look, we were right for releasing the other version instead.
We stand by the Whedon version.
And I was like, damn. I was like, Snyder did not pull any punches with one of the most powerful studios in the entire world. So I'll respect a man for that.
Yeah, that's kind of badass. I remember when that whole story started. And at first, I was on the side of, I really don't know how I feel about them just completely remaking a movie like this. This seems like a really big irresponsible waste of money. I don't know if it's really worth what they're doing here to coming over to the side of, this is one of very, very, very few exceptions, I would say, that I am actually starting to get a little bit excited for.
And it's fun.
Some type of, like, new director's cut.
Yeah.
Because it seems like more than just a new cut, it's a revision.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to think about. That would be, if it was an intentional thing, it'd be really fun to see a film that was shot, all this footage was made, and to see different creators' interpretation of using that footage to create a narrative. And the narratives would all be similar because you could really only make so much varied footage.
That's interesting.
But how different is it between people? Granted, I think Whedon just was a hack and sort of did what he was easy to do for the edit, and he made a shitty movie on purpose just to get a paycheck. That is still an interpretation from the man, so I like seeing a different one. So yeah, that'll be fun. But so we should get on to assigning movies to each other. So these are movies that we'll babble and rant about in the coming week when we've seen them. So Logan, why don't you go ahead and assign me what my homework is?
Awesome. Want to throw you another Studio Ghibli movie, The Wind Rises.
It's on. This is definitely on the list. This is the last one I need to see.
Ooh, good for you, sir. You've got several up on me. This is the 2013 movie by Hayao Miyazaki. The IMDb description goes, a look at the life of, name I cannot pronounce, the man who designed Japanese fighter planes during World War II. Just going to take a straight pivot right around that name. So I have not seen this, but I know you and your lovely wife have been blasting through Ghibli movies recently. So I wanted to officially hand you this movie. I didn't know this was the last one on your list. So I've helped you clean up Pixar and Studio Ghibli in 2021 so far. I'm doing good for you, son.
Apparently, I'm a big animation boy. I didn't really expect that to be a thing.
It's cool.
But I love animation, and Studio Ghibli is one of the legends. So having all of that behind me / ready for rewatch is cool. So yes, Wind Rises is going to be a fun watch for sure. So we'll get on to your assignment. Yours is kind of a legend. Again, it kind of fits into the theme of me assigning you all these fucking legendary films over and over again. But you put them on your list, so it's your fault. This is Seven Samurai. It's on HBO Max.
Yes.
This is a 1954 3.5 hour
Bring it on.
film. And so Seven might sound familiar to some people, and that may sound random to others, but the reason to bring it up is because this film directly inspired The Magnificent Seven. We wouldn't have those westerns without Seven Samurai. On top of that, Seven Samurai also has roots in things like Star Wars. You know, people like George Lucas were fans of films, many films, Seven Samurai being one of them, that helped inspire things that ultimately became Star Wars and other stories we've seen here in the West. So it's a big influence on a lot of that nerd culture because honestly, when it comes down to it, Japan knows best how to tell, this sounds insulting, but I mean it in the best possible way. Japan knows how to tell nerd stories. Stories that are goofy on the surface, but are real sincere when you actually examine them. And so I'm curious to see what your perspective is on this. I can't say I've ever watched it. I've seen substantial clips from it. I've read about it. I've studied it from professors' perspectives. This has come up in a few classes in the past, but I've never watched it from beginning to end. So I'm curious to see what you have to say.
Yeah, I am completely blank on this movie. I'm obviously aware of it by reputation. I've heard it referenced. I think this movie is kind of like the Beatles of American fantasy movies in that every modern movie ever says it's influenced by Seven Samurai. Like you can talk about The Mandalorian. Oh, well, this is the episode where they're clearly paying homage to Seven Samurai.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah, and it's so much content, so many movies and so many shows directly pay homage to this to Seven Samurai, so I already feel familiar with it just by extension. Kind of like I mentioned with Citizen Kane, like I feel like I've heard people talk about this movie so much, it's almost like I've seen parts of it already, but I've never seen the whole movie. 3.5 hours, and I'm excited and ready to go. Not exactly sure what it's going to be like to watch a 3.5 hour foreign non-English movie in black and white. It's been a while since I've been able to say that I've done that. But I'm excited to check this out. I've been on a little bit of a kick here with some big classic movies that I've never seen. And Seven Samurai is towards the top of the best of lists that a lot of important people out there have created. So I'm excited that I will finally get to check this out and have enough.
Yeah, I'm glad to get this to you because I'm not gonna lie, probably not gonna watch this alongside you.
This is not one where I would expect
3.5 hours is a doozy. Now, if you're blown away, and blown away being from a point of view of this is an older film, so it's not gonna be mind-blowing effects or anything, but that's not what it's about. If you are very impressed by it, I'll probably give it a go because it is legendary. And the Magnificent Seven, especially one of the older adaptions, with I think James Coburn was in it, along with a few other Western legends. I watched that a fuckload as a kid. I watched that particular adaptation a lot as a child. I don't know why it was my infatuation with it, but I remember it very well. So in that way, Seven Samurai has affected me. So it's probably worth a go at some point. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. But otherwise, that is the episode, side. Unless you have something you want to add.
That's it for this week.
All right.
Now I got to go watch some movies. Come back with some fresh
Bring more
opinions.
things, television shows and movies. All of them from streaming services. The theaters are back up and running. We touch on modern movies as well. We don't ignore the big things, but we're here to let you know what content is out there to see what's worth considering for sure. But if you want to be around week to week with us, follow us or subscribe to us on any platform you consume us on. That includes Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. YouTube is Thursdays or Friday releases, depending on how life is and how upload times for YouTube are going. Hour-and-a-half episodes take like 5 hours to upload for YouTube on a good day. So that's interesting. But if you want to follow us on social media to know if there's anything interesting going on, follow me on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, or follow Logan on Letterboxd. There are other links as well, all of it in the description. And if you have had a good time, please let us know in the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you, and a like goes a long way as well. We hope that your next upcoming week is great. We will see you next Wednesday when we release our audio-based episodes, and we hope to hear from you. Logan, let's say goodbye.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
You really will just read anything I put in the prompt, won't you?